Welcome to Art Lucida. Today we look at Daido Moriyama, the street photographer who shaped a generation. Judging only by his resume, you might expect the familiar story of a master becoming a legend. It is not. This may be your first impression of Moriyama, someone firing the shutter almost at random. His work is full of fragments, repetition, disorder, and high contrast black and white. You may ask what a black and white photographer from decades ago has to do with us now. Look closely at the rough, monochrome filters built into iOS. That aesthetic even found its way into Apple's filters. This small detail opens a larger question. Let us return to the childhood of this aesthetic rebel and see what shaped him. What produced such a radical visual language? When Japan surrendered, Moriyama was 7. His father's work kept the family moving. Unable to settle at school, he skipped class and wandered the city. His disappointed father withdrew him from school and sent him to apprentice with a commercial artist, but it was already too late. Moriyama had become an untamable, stray dog. Then one day, I fell for an office worker. We dated, and nearly all I earned as a designer went toward our time together. 4 months later, on a hot Sunday, she said, "I am getting married." I said, "All right, goodbye." Perhaps I was the only person who entered photography for such a private reason, to escape heartbreak. I never planned to become a photographer. I grew up alone on the streets, picked up a camera by chance, and simply continued. In Japan, in the late 1960s and early 1970s, street photography was a difficult path. Moriyama persisted, photographing constantly and producing books. He organized projects, taught students, and took other work to survive. His friend, Nobuyoshi Araki, likewise relied on commercial photography while pursuing his own work. In the 1960s, Japan was in a politically radical period. Moriyama, who had just begun photography, was shocked by the frantic images in William Klein's New York. He realized photography could be radically free. His design work required photographs. Through an introduction, he met his first mentor, a well-known figure in Kansai, whose studio attracted leading photographers. In 1959, while Moriyama worked as an assistant, Tomai Tomatsu, Eikoh Hosoe, and others founded VIVO. The group used subjective documentary to challenge the divide between objectivity and personal vision. They believed documentary photography tried to show society's true face, but failed to reach people's inner states and emotions. So VIVO members focused more on the relationship between photographer and subject. Photography need not enter society through grand narratives. It could ask what the medium is, and how individuals relate to the world. Deeply moved by this idea, Moriyama quit his job and headed for Tokyo to join VIVO. By the time he arrived, the group had already dissolved. Seeing the young photographer devastated, Eikoh Hosoe took him on as an assistant. Moriyama then helped produce Hosoe and Yukio Mishima's Ordeal by Roses. The book explores Mishima's fascination with the body and desire. Assisting Hosoe also transformed Moriyama's darkroom and printing skills. It brought him into contact with major figures in the art world. His rough, shaky, out-of-focus look was not simply invented. He could not afford film, so he shot on leftover motion picture stock from friends. Unable to afford reels or developing tanks, he processed film in buckets, relying on emotion and intuition rather than strict control. Instead of timing development precisely, he worked by feel. For his early series, Pantomime, he searched hospitals and university clinics for permission to photograph. A friend's introduction finally secured access to a maternity hospital. Infants preserved in formaldehyde expressed the core of his photography. Life. Already condemned to death before birth, now we reach his published work, online. The photographs seem extremely fragmented if you buy the books, hoping to uncover a neat logic. My costly experience says Moriyama rejected fixed logic. Photography merged fragments, abstraction, and dreams. The result was more intense than ordinary sight. His photographs revealed another reality. In the 1960s, the Vietnam War raged while Japanese streets felt chaotic and desolate. Moriyama sensed that photography's future lay in the street. In Japan, a photo theater. He photographed touring troops, itinerant performers, lime beggars, and other people at society's margins. Its wild style captured the harsh disorder of urban life. This made Daido Moriyama stand out. In 1968, photographer and close friend Takuma Nakahira and others founded the experimental magazine Provoke. They invited Moriyama to join, believing photographers should pursue truth through questioning. The magazine recorded Japan's turmoil in the late 1960s with enormous energy, full bleed spreads, and high-contrast black and white images that felt deliberately uncontrolled. Often shot at random, with little concern for lighting or format, this rebellion challenged a Japanese establishment that prized refined beauty. He even photographed a couple in a love hotel, reflecting the confusion of Japanese society. The established photography world was furious after only 3 issues. Provoke folded by 1971. Japan's protest era was fading, and the defeated nation was becoming an economic power. As society changed, Moriyama turned toward stray dogs. They mirrored Japan's movement from wartime humiliation to confidence of rapid growth. Those conflicting emotions made the dog a national self-portrait and the image that defined Moriyama's visual language. Moriyama compared himself to a stray dog, without territory, always wandering in search of food. It became his signature image, and overseas buyers repeatedly requested prints. Income from this single photograph supported him for years. Irony. Farewell photography then pushed his ideas to their breaking point. As fragmented photography spread, younger photographers copied him, much as Moriyama-style paintsuits circulate online today. The central claim was simple. Even an unconscious exposure can still be a photograph. But this anything-goes position left Moriyama deeply confused. He felt he no longer understood photography, and turned to drugs to escape. He began questioning the medium itself. His answer was to assemble discarded images copied from television, advertisements, posters, newspapers, and other printed media. He also rephotographed details of his own prints, creating copies within copies. Photography, he wrote, endlessly copies the outside world. I copy those copies, and even copy myself. I seriously considered quitting photography. He repeatedly lost patience, and felt he needed distance from photography. He burned many negatives, and considered quitting. After Farewell Photography appeared, Moriyama entered a long slump until 11 years later, when his Light and Shadow series was released, finally answering what photography truly is. He left behind the violent postwar style, and turned toward everyday structures of light and shadow, paralleling the rise of ordinary moment photography in the West. This long-awaited return won the Photographic Society of Japan's annual award and brought him back to work. Some critics still thought he had lost his edge. His 2003 book Shinjuku runs over 700 pages. The 2-kilogram book draws on over 800 rolls of film, using slices of time to describe Shinjuku as he experienced it. Moriyama believed most people only record daily life without entering its other world. Shinjuku's backstreets held a decay you could almost touch. People became writhing shadows. Neon Shinjuku held karaoke bars, skyscrapers, luxury hotels, and restaurants. Moriyama saw desire circulating there like a food chain. Moriyama's life became one continuous practice. He draws no firm line between life and work. He calls his pictures snapshots and shoots as casually as an amateur or tourist. Each day begins by looking at the world's earliest photograph. It hangs above his bed. He looks at it daily, almost to wash his eyes. The ritual is as ordinary as brushing his teeth before going back into the street. Thus, we see changing seasons, shop signs, torn historical posters, and alert animals. Even an ordinary supermarket becomes a place to observe. As technology changed, most of his work after 2010 was in color. These images are more reflective and romantic in them. He paused at overlooked urban corners, often preferring quiet, empty streets to the violent scenes of his youth, to understand this color work. A small clue appears in 2 nearly identical photographs of a hat, made 2 years apart after Light and Shadow. In the earlier image, strong light and shadow make the object feel sculptural. The later image is calm, with a tiny price tag. The shift reveals his release from pure sensory excitement. He became a photographer of everyday life as is, connecting his work to Western approaches represented by Stephen Shore. Because of the Second World War, Japanese photography developed almost as a parallel universe to West. Postwar photographers kept returning to the memory of war. They rejected polished middle-class sentiment, and documentary became central. Moriyama, perfectly placed within this moment, joined William Klein's motion, Eikoh Hosoe's darkroom work, Shoumei Tomatsu's subjective documentary, and Andy Warhol's repetition. Jack Kerouac's On the Road added the spirit of the Beat generation. Together these influences made Moriyama unavoidable in contemporary photography and shaped generations of photographers. In the past 2 decades, Japanese photography drew global attention precisely because it differed from Western ideas. From the street, Moriyama traced Japan's turbulent postwar rise and decline. Viewed together, Japan's 3 photographic giants trace a shift from feeling toward reason. Moriyama believed that carrying too much equipment stops you from photographing. A point-and-shoot frees you from settings and preserves the spontaneity of the encounter, much like a phone today. That makes Apple's Moriyama-like phone filter almost inevitable. Over 30 years, a street corner can vanish as if it never existed. Everything disappears quickly. For Moriyama, a day with a camera is a journey. Familiar places become new again. He advised young photographers to say they were students doing homework if challenged on the street. Unless someone seemed genuinely dangerous, they should keep moving through crowds and making pictures. History creates its heroes. Japanese photography needed someone willing to reject and provoke the previous generation. Moriyama became that figure, as his style spread across social media. He began to look like an all-powerful master. Consumer culture absorbed the sharp edge of his rebellion. Everyone wanted the look, so they bought cameras with built-in filters. The internet often discusses photographers without their historical context. Moriyama's fame came from his era, but also from offering an image ordinary people could imitate. This episode required extensive research. Thanks for watching. I am Xiaoming from Art Lucida. See you next time. Please like and subscribe.